what's up, everybody? Boss Associate checking in, and this is, kind of like going from the podcast that I had yesterday. There was like, one topic that some people within the comments or the live chat was, bringing up that I said that I was going to table until, either at the end of the podcast or pretty much like after all of that as like a little bonus feature. So this is, the bonus feature in that. And, of course, from last week going into, I guess, today, you had the whole thing in reference to Tank Davis and that, there was an arrest warrant out for him over in Florida. And that, as of, I guess, whether it was yesterday or today, it hasn't been any news as far as like, him being, turning himself in or doing anything like that in order for him to, be in the books and all that type of stuff. But, I pretty much like titled this the way that it is because, a lot of people, have followed, Tank Davis over the years, particularly when he had that transition from, being at one point in his career to being featured on pay-per-view. Now, I've been in attendance for a number of his fights. One of them being his bout in Atlanta against Yuriorkis Gamboa. And at that particular point, it pretty much like shifted from him being like featured in these events that could be at the time for Showtime and to be over on Showtime pay-per-view. That's why, you had like his first pay-per-view feature was against Leo Santa Cruz, and we saw what happened in that one where he got that uppercut for the knockout victory. And, from that point forward, he was able to be featured in, pay-per-views, right? And, we got to the point where, some people would say like, hey, he could be the face of boxing or whatever it is, right? But, when it came to like what was going on in the last couple of years, even before his fight against Lamar Gross Jr., you had, some instances where he had like extended layoffs or, he only had like one fight a year or something like that. Like, for example, when he had his fight against Frank Martin, then he was supposed to have another fight. Some people thought he would fight Vasyl Lomachenko. Some people thought he would fight Shakur Stevenson. Didn't end up happening that way. And then the thing with Lamar Gross Jr. was supposed to happen at the end of 2024. It didn't happen until March 1st of 2025. And then you had the thing there where some people thought there would be a rematch. Didn't end up being a rematch. Then they had the thing with the Jake Paul fight coming up. And this is where we're pretty much like here in the present, right? Now, given the whole situation of what happened outside the ring, that happened outside the ring, okay? What happened, and there's no way out of that, okay? But what I'm talking about here is like the impact that it has, I guess, in the sport of boxing. Some people have kind of like brought that up because he has been like the featured fighter, so to speak, for, I guess some people would say like PBC or whatever it is or whatever, right? But, you have like fighters that have been like the flagships of either promotional companies or networks or whatever. Like, for example, you would have Anthony Joshua for Matchroom Boxing and how they were able to kind of like put the zone on a world stage or particularly in the UK or whatever it is through Anthony Joshua or Canelo Alvarez, through multiple platforms or whatever. So Tank was supposed to be that next person. Yeah, he did kind of like stem from Floyd Mayweather, given that their affiliation and things like that. But, you still had that where, okay, if you know it's going to be a big event, Tank Davis is going to be involved in that when it comes to the sport of boxing. But now, given what, like I said, what has happened over the past year, I would say the past year, that, it's kind of gone a little bit down. And at this point, it might be not really in the picture for some time, if ever, right? So for me, it's kind of difficult because, as I said, I've covered a multitude of events there, involving Tank Davis, and I know a lot of people that have been involved in organizing these events. I've, of course, been there with multiple conversations with people tied with Tank Davis, and for this to kind of happen here at this current juncture, like it's like, at least for me, I would feel like, it's let a lot of people down, so to speak. Not because of his actions. His actions are his actions. He's an adult. He makes those decisions. That's on him. If, people around him say, hey, you ain't supposed to do this or you ain't supposed to do that, then it's up to him to, kind of like, take that advice and, move with it, rock with it, or, play his own tune. You know what I mean? But, as a result, you do have like a lot of, a good number of people that have kind of, felt the effects of it. And here we are in like the days of social media, and you know how like, even, if somebody makes a comment that doesn't have anything to do with Tank Davis, but if they're tied with him in any shape or form, the comments are going to be there talking about, hey, what's up with Tank? What's up with Tank? What's up with Tank? Listen, Tank is Tank, and that's that. I mean, y'all, hey, if y'all follow, what was going on with, the whole build up to Tank Davis versus Jake Paul, right? And some of y'all seen me out there, and y'all see me ask a question in reference to like, being a face of boxing and things like that. And you seen a comment made, what I mean, from Tank Davis and things like that. But I was saying there in that press conference that like, the whole demeanor didn't really seem right, and then come to find out later on, you see what happened, over in the Miami area. But, this kind of like says that, you had these instances with, fighters, whether it's through Tank, you've had it in the past, what was it, like Sergey Kovalev or I don't know, like some people say Dmitry Bivol, that there's some things that you just can't do outside of the ring and pretty much like, fly when it comes to like being in the sport of boxing, like, and that's one of them, you feel me? So as far as like what happens from this point, I don't know, but there'll be a lot of reactions to it, but at least for me, from a business impact, it'll really affect the sport of boxing from a business standpoint. Boxing is boxing, we move on and things like that, but you have this that's happening right now as either I'm talking or you're listening to this, and well, now we gotta at least see immediately or right now, like how this plays out. But then from this point forward, like going into the rest of 2026 and maybe into 2027, how it would affect, of course, with Tank Davis, and then also, those that are, around him and things like that. So, that's what I had in reference to this topic. I guess we'll get more as, the days go on here, at least through this week, as far as like any updates on the current status with him over in Florida. But yeah, it's like a crazy situation right there. You feel me? And as far as like, him from a PR standpoint, for me, like I don't see how you can, really, maneuver through this. I know that there's been some comments about like, hey, let's see if we could, still have him on for a fight and stuff like that. I don't know about all that, cuz. Just being real with you, I don't know about all that, cuz. But we'll see what goes on, at least here for the rest of the week and for, I guess the next couple of months while this story develops. But that's what I have on it. Share your thoughts. Hit the subscribe button for the boxing source. We appreciate the support. And that's it.